Mill disposed of my daughter's clothes, demanded custody, and posted an outrageous social media update. Hey everyone, just to give you some backstory, we're a family of 4 myself, my husband, 38M, and our 2 kiddos. My husband and I have been together for almost 11 years and married for 8. Throughout all these years, my mother-in-law, Pam, has been a consistent thorn in our side. She was somewhat tolerable, so we put up with her because she helped us out a lot when we first got married, and we felt kind of indebted to her. Plus, she's a widow since my father-in-law passed away a few years ago, so my husband felt bad about leaving her all alone. We'd spend time with her whenever we could. But honestly, we were often relieved when we weren't around her. It's not that she's a horrible person, it's just that she always thinks she knows best and never listens to anyone else's opinions. You know the type, the kind of older person who believes age trumps all intelligence. Despite that, we tried to be there for her because she doted on her grandkids and needed us more than ever. We'd visit her at least twice, sometimes 3 times a month. My husband and I would just smile and nod when she said things we didn't agree with to avoid fights. We learned the hard way that arguing with her was not only futile, but also totally stressful. Now I wish I had stood up for what I believed in when I had the chance, especially considering what she did recently. So, about our kids, we have a 6-year-old daughter and a 4-year-old son. They adore their grandma, mostly because they don't see how judgmental and conservative she is. To them, she's just the grandma who spoils them and lets them do whatever they want. About a month ago, my husband and I had to attend an out-of-town wedding, and our usual sitter fell sick at the last minute. We had to leave our kids with Pam. When we came back 2 days later to pick them up, things felt off. The kids were eager to go home, which was unusual because they usually loved staying at Grandma's. Also, I noticed that the bag of clothes I packed for my daughter was much lighter. I didn't think much of it until we got home, and I realized that most of my daughter's clothes were missing. After searching everywhere, I asked my daughter, and she casually told me that Grandma had thrown them all away, saying she needed to start wearing more feminine clothes. I was shocked. Pam had done crazy things before, but this was next level. Clothes aren't cheap, and we usually buy sustainable, high-quality stuff to last. Pam throwing them out wasn't just a waste of money. It was totally unacceptable, especially for her reasons. I immediately told my husband, and we called Pam. She didn't even deny it. She said she believed it wasn't right to confuse our daughter by dressing her in boys' clothes. For context, my daughter prefers comfy boys' t-shirts and shorts for daily wear, but loves dressing up in dresses and skirts for fancy outings. We let our kids pick their own clothes because comfort is key, right? Both my husband and I were furious. We told Pam she had no right to throw those clothes away and that we expected her to reimburse us. We also wanted her to apologize to us and the kids because they were really upset. Pam not only refused to pay but also doubled down, saying she was saving our daughter from gender confusion and that this generation had gone soft with parenting. When we tried to argue, she brought up how she supported us financially during our early years of marriage when we were struggling. She was right about helping us, so we told her we would repay her the money we owed over the next few months. For now, we'd start by calculating and subtracting the cost of the clothes she threw away. So get this, my other-in-law Pam, right? She threw away a bunch of our daughter's clothes that she didn't approve of. I was furious. I told her she was banned from our house and wouldn't be seeing the kids anymore because she really traumatized them. We blocked her number before she could say anything else. I talked to the kids again to get more details, since I knew why my daughter was upset. But I couldn't figure out why my son was so shaken, too. His clothes and toys were untouched. Turns out, Pam made a huge scene. She called both kids over and threw away the clothes one by one, explaining why she didn't like each piece. My daughter started crying, and my son tried to comfort her and stop Pam, but he couldn't. Instead of backing down, Pam yelled at both of them. It got ugly, and they were both really upset. Even retelling the story, they started crying again. There was no way I was going to let Pam around them anymore after that, and my husband was totally with me on this. After we blocked her, Pam didn't try to contact us, and we thought she was done with the drama. Weeks went by, and we almost forgot about her. That is, until a couple of days ago when she showed up at our doorstep. Luckily, the kids were with my parents, so they missed this whole new mess. My husband and I were in the living room when the doorbell rang. We saw Pam standing outside from the window. After some debating, we decided to open the door but not let her in. We wanted to see what she wanted. She didn't waste a second. Pam handed us some papers and started demanding custody of our grandkids. She said she'd talked to her lawyer and had a plan. The kids would stay with her full time until we paid back all the money we owed her. She wasn't just talking about the money she helped us with when times were tough. She also wanted my husband to pay back everything his parents spent on raising him. It was an outrageous amount, and it would take us years to pay off that kind of debt. The craziest part? She thought this was totally normal. My husband was too shocked to say anything, so I told her to get out or I'd call the cops. I had zero interest in arguing with her or explaining why her demands were absurd. She refused to leave, insisting she wouldn't go until we signed the paperwork with our lawyer. According to her, we were failing as parents and had gone soft. That was it for me. I grabbed my phone and called the police. Even then, she just stood there, defiant. She said I'd never get a restraining order and that she was going to make sure I lost custody of the kids. She was really pushing my buttons, but I stayed calm until the cops arrived and escorted her off our property. She didn't go quietly, though she was kicking, screaming, and cursing. Thank goodness the kids weren't there to see that. I don't think I did anything wrong by banning her or threatening a restraining order. My husband supports me, even though he was too stunned to react when she was here. But the rest of his family? They're all against us now. They think I'm ungrateful because Pam was the only one who helped us out when we were struggling with a newborn. Just because she helped us doesn't mean she gets to control our lives. I don't get why the rest of the family can't see that. Everyone's been hounding us, saying it was awful to call the cops on her when she just wanted to help. Seriously? Help by threatening to take our kids away until we repay some exaggerated debt? No way. My husband's taking it the hardest, though. He was the golden child in his family, and now everyone's turned on him. It's been tough for him, but I am honestly not bothered. I know we did the right thing. Honestly, exactly my family. I keep trying to convince him that what we're doing is the right move, and he agrees he hasn't said otherwise. But I can tell he's super upset, and that's what's making me feel like maybe I'm pushing too hard. I don't know. I know for a fact that if we cut Pam off and actually go ahead with filing a restraining order against her, the rest of the family will cut us off too. I'm fine with that. I just don't know if my husband can handle it as well as I can. So now I want to ask if I'm an asshole for wanting to file a restraining order against my mother-in-law. Update 1. Hey, so I decided to take the advice from the comments and spoke to my husband about what's been going on with him. I had tried to talk to him earlier, but he kept insisting he was fine and that he'd get over it eventually. Our kids had come back home, and he still wasn't himself, so I was obviously getting worried. Last night, after the kids went to sleep, I finally confronted him and asked what was really going on. It's been over 2 weeks since our last run-in with his mom, and we hadn't even filed the restraining order yet because I wasn't sure he was on board. I told him he could keep pretending everything was fine, but we'd known each other too long for me not to know he wasn't okay. I said that to deal with the situation. We first needed to admit there was a problem. Only then could we fix it. So I asked him to talk to me, and finally he did. At first, he just looked so sad, silently crying while struggling to find the words. I sat beside him and comforted him as best I could. My husband has always been super close to his family, no matter how they are. Who isn't, right? We all love our families, especially when they've shown us love and affection. He's always been the darling of his family, and he told me he was finding it really hard to accept that he might not be able to fix things with them ever again. Ideally, he'd never have wanted this crisis to start, But now that it's happened, there's no going back. He was sad because he knew he had to cut them out of his life, and he'd already started the process. Breaking away was tough and downright depressing. I totally understood why he was so upset. He said despite his family's conservative and regressive beliefs, he'd managed to overlook it because they loved him. But now, that didn't seem enough. It wasn't even close. They'd shown him that when push came to shove, they valued their outdated principles more than their relationships. That was just sad. His entire family, including his mom, would rather control him than love him for who he is. Most of all, he was hurt by his mom's behavior. He said he'd always accepted her as she was, even tried to understand her awful opinions. Even though he didn't agree with most of her beliefs, he tried to be respectful. But she couldn't even give us that bare minimum courtesy. She expected us to put up with her disrespect, even at our kids' expense. He also told me some things from the past he'd never shared because he didn't want to stress me out or make me upset. Apparently, after our daughter was born, Pam had suggested I quit my job to be a stay-at-home mom, even though she knew how much I wanted to work. In my family, making your own money is a big deal, and I wanted to make my family and myself proud. So, it was important for me to work. My husband said he'd had to fight with his mom to make sure she didn't say anything to me about quitting my job because I'd just given birth and was vulnerable. He didn't want her upsetting me. After our son was born, he had the same argument with her again. This time, she was even more insistent. Again, he didn't want her talking to me about it and upsetting me. This time, he couldn't stop her. He told me he was really upset with himself because he should have cut his mom off earlier instead of waiting until something awful happened. I finally hugged him and told him he was the best father. We were good parents and didn't have anything to worry about. He'd tried to be a good son, but now he was choosing to be a good father, and there was nothing wrong with that, even though I'd also tried to tolerate Pam Bacay. We owed her, she'd crossed a line. We were justified in wanting to break away from her. I assured him he was a good father and husband. He'd done the right thing by not telling me about Pam wanting me to quit my job after having our kids. That would have put me in a tough spot. On one hand, I wouldn't have wanted to cut her off after everything she'd done for us. But on the other hand, I would have really hated being around her even more than I already did. So, she kept bugging me about quitting my job, but anyway, we managed to talk things out. This morning, he seemed to be in a way better mood, so we decided to head to the lawyer this evening to sort things out. Update 2. Hey everyone! So we had a chat with the lawyer about whether we could file for a restraining order. Unfortunately, he had the same opinion as most people in the comments. We should hold off for now because we don't really have enough evidence to prove she's a threat to us and our family. All she did was show up at our house with paperwork and demand custody of our kids, and apparently that's not enough to get a protective order. The lawyer advised us to document all interactions with her from now on. If we ever feel threatened again, we can definitely reach out to him. So that's the plan for now. Ideally, we just want her to leave us alone, but if we can get her to stay away permanently, that would be awesome. So far, it's just been my husband's family texting him to say he's failed as a son and stuff, but she hasn't reached out to us directly. We've blocked most of his family who took her side, so no one's bothering us right now. It's been pretty quiet from her end, so either Pam is planning something big or she's given up. Either way, I don't really care. Talking to the lawyer gave me some perspective, and now I know if she does anything, we can just document it and she'll be legally ordered to stay away. My husband is doing a lot better since the last update, and I am really happy for him. He's finally finding it a bit easier to deal with. Everything. Oh, and a lot of people seem to think he forced me to stay in touch with Pam for all these years. Just to clarify, that's not true. It was a decision we both made because we felt indebted to her. I realize now it wasn't the best decision, but it's done. Anyway, if anything else happens, I'll let you guys know. Update 3. Hi guys. In my last update, I mentioned that Pam hadn't reached out after our last interaction. I speculated she might be planning something big. And guess what? I was right, but not in the way I expected. She made a complete fool of herself in front of so many people that I can't help but laugh while typing this. It's been about 3 weeks since I posted here. Last evening, we were watching a movie as a family when my phone blew up with notifications. My husband's phone was also buzzing like crazy. We found out we'd been tagged in a post by an anonymous account, which was obviously Pam's. She posted pictures of our family with this absurd caption about how a working woman is a disgrace and a sign that men are weak. She ranted about how our generation is rotten and ruining society, and she called for people to share her post to fix our family. Honestly, I couldn't even get mad because it was so hilarious that she thought this would work. It was like her idea of a petition, which would be laughed out of any court. I originally thought something terrible had happened, but most messages were from people laughing at the post and asking if we'd seen it. My husband and I laughed for a good half hour. Our friends saw the post and left hilarious comments. One said, "I propose we hop in our time machines and go back to bartering with livestock so we don't need 2 incomes anymore. Share this post if you agree." Another funny one was, "I can't believe women are wearing such clothes. What's next? Dad's wearing leashes? Outrageous." It was all in goo. Fun, and people were just mocking that ridiculous post. We made sure to take screenshots just in case. Hey everyone, here's a little update on what's been happening. So, about 3 weeks ago, Pam made this really dumb post about us. Since then, we've been pretty busy dealing with it. First, we tried to get her to take it down, and then we reached out to our lawyer. So, right after she posted it, we called her up and told her to remove it. Instead of listening, she totally flipped out on us over the phone, cussing us out and saying she was going to make sure we lost custody of our kids. She even said she'd make our kids live by her rules, no matter what. It felt like a threat, so we recorded that call. We sent the recording and the post to our lawyer. He said it was enough to go ahead and file for a restraining order. We did that a couple of days after she posted it. It took almost 3 weeks of back and forth, but we finally got a restraining order against her for 2 years, just 2 days ago. Honestly, I see that as a major victory. Now, we don't have to worry about anyone from my husband's side of the family bothering us anymore. It's just going to be me, my husband, and our kids. We're super happy about it and can't wait to get back to normal life without all this drama.